We want to spend time this morning focusing on an alarming new study. Researchers with the Journal of American Medical Association found Texas has the most rape-related pregnancies of all states with abortion bans. Joining us live this morning to talk more about this study is Sonia Corrales, Deputy CEO with Houston Area Women's Center. Sonia, good morning. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with us this morning.
Absolutely. Good morning to you.
So I want to get to this study. It's quite disturbing to hear the information that it uncovered. Texas saw more than 26,000 rape-related pregnancies after the state outlawed all abortions, with no exceptions for survivors of rape or incest. So when you think about this, talk to us about how this abortion ban impacts those specifically in low-income communities, and then, of course, people of color.
Well, I think, one of the things, the Houston Area Women's Center provides services to survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. And in working with these survivors, we know that women of color, and oftentimes, in this particular case, Hispanic women, face many challenges in accessing reproductive care, or just care overall, contraceptives, abortion. And it impacts them because they have to take time off work, it impacts their transportation, childcare. And so we know that these two things are linked, right? And so we cannot talk about reproductive health without talking about domestic violence or sexual violence, because they are strongly linked.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. You at Hawk, have you guys seen an increase in calls through your sexual assault hotline for people needing assistance, needing help?
But, one of the things that we see just overall is we see trends where we trend up, and then sometimes we trend low. We know that these crimes, both sexual assault and domestic violence, are very underreported. Sometimes what happens is that when there is more awareness in the community, then we tend to see those calls increase. But we know overall that, again, these crimes are underreported. We also know that sexual violence happens a lot of times by people that know each other. Overall, I think, when we look at studies, there's about a 40% chance that somebody who is in an intimate partner relationship is also sexually assaulted by their partner. At the Houston Area Women's Center, we actually see that much higher, coming in at 75%. So what this means is that in intimate partner relationships, or where there's violence, there also tends to be sexual violence in about 75% of the cases. So we know that this is occurring within relationships where there's domestic violence as well.
That number is so high.
There's sexual coercion happening, including that reproductive coercion that we all often talk about.
Yeah, that number is extremely high. Sonia, I want to ask you about, you mentioned underreported, that term, and I'm glad you brought that up, because there are so many misconceptions when it comes to sexual assault, that being one. But talk to us about more misconceptions when it comes to sexual assault.
I think, one of the things that we know in our community is that as much awareness as we brought, to this issue, it is that still today, sexual assault survivors are still blamed, by our culture. And so we know that in our culture, we often see sexual violence play out where survivors are getting blamed. And so oftentimes they get blamed because one of the biggest misconceptions is that rape is sex. And so one of the things that we always want to make sure that we talk about is that rape is not sex, that it is in fact an act of violence. And whenever there is no consent present, that's when sexual assault occurs. And this happens most of the time by people that know each other. The other thing is that, if somebody this goes back to also when we blame survivors of sexual assault, is that if, we go back to if she was wearing something that people think was inappropriate, then somehow it's her fault. Again, I want to bring us back to the majority of the time it happens by somebody that knows, the survivor. But one of the biggest ones is that rape is sex, and we have to begin to shift that, because what happens with that is that then survivors get blamed for the abuse rather than shifting that blame on the person who is inflicting the violence.
Yeah, and it's through our Breaking Free initiative that we launched last year. We learned that blame and shame looks differently among different groups, that sexual violence, domestic violence has no barriers, whether that be young, old, gay, straight, male, or female. So knowing that blame and shame exists, knowing there are resources out there to help, can make the world of a difference. With that, I understand Hawk has added resources to provide help to those impacted by sexual assault.
Absolutely. We have the Houston Area Women's Center has been around since 1977. We have two 24-hour hotlines. One of them is specifically for sexual assault survivors, and that number is 713-528-7273. We also have a chat. So if you go to our website, you can access us through the chat. Our hotline is open 24 hours a day. We offer immediate access to safety, which includes shelter. It also includes any kind of counseling that somebody would like. Oftentimes, we also see a lot of survivors who this may have happened to them. They may have not recognized it, or there was a shame associated with it, and so they don't report. And so it doesn't matter when this happened to you. You can call us and we can provide support, because we know that this is a very traumatic experience in the lives of people. So we're available both on our hotline and on our chat, and we offer lots of services to men, to women, and to children.
Yeah. Sonia Corrales with Hawk, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.